welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today, we're going to talk about AEW Dynamite from March the 6th, 2023. But first, we got to get into news and notes. Note 1. Sammy Guevara has been suspended from AEW for an indeterminate amount of time due to not following concussion protocol during his match with Jeff Hardy, which aired on Rampage about 2 or 3 weeks ago. The match occurred on the 4th, so that means it probably aired on like the 16th or the 17th. So the match is almost a full month old. And he has wrestled on television since this match happened. And now he is suspended. Now, I don't like Sammy Guevara. I'm not a fan. But they're going to make me defend Sammy Guevara in this instant. Because no matter how you cut the concussion protocol business, it's not the wrestler who is responsible for this. It is the referees and the doctors. So what occurred? Apparently at some point in the match, Sammy Guevara did a shooting star press. It was supposed to be blocked by Jeff Hardy, who got his knees up. And when he got his knees up, Sammy Guevara's knee jammed into Jeff Hardy's face and broke his nose. From that point, Jeff Hardy ended up getting hit with the GTH, which is Sammy Guevara's finisher. And that is what he is being suspended for, is that he gave a knee to the head of Jeff Hardy after kneeing him in the head for a shoot off the shooting star press. Excuse me, but why wasn't the match stopped? If Jeff Hardy was legitimately hurt, as this suspension implies that he was really injured, then the referee should be fired, and so should the doctor, because they didn't stop the match. How is this Sammy Guevara's fault? Why is Sammy Guevara being scapegoated in this situation? It doesn't make any sense. Pretty much anybody who can think can look at this and say, this ain't Sammy's fault. If the referee let the match keep going, then he keeps going. It's up to the referee to stop it. Why is it Sammy's fault? That was dumb. Of all the things Sammy Guevara keeps getting in trouble for, it's always the dumb things. This is a guy who was suspended in 2020 for comments that was made 4 years prior. There is no reason to suspend this guy for comments that he said before the company even existed. That's ridiculous. And now he's being suspended because the referees and the doctors are morons and didn't stop the match. Come on, man. Of all the things that we suspended Sammy Guevara for, it's things that literally he didn't have anything to do with. Interestingly enough, now Matt Hardy's contract is up to expire. If I were Tony Khan, you should pull a Big Swole just on Matt Hardy. I know Matt Hardy ain't as terrible as Big Swole, but what are you re-signing Matt Hardy for, by the by? To do what? Exactly. You don't use him on television, really. He's a huge expense on your property. Everybody likes Jeff. Nobody likes Matt. And I'm pretty sure, if Matt leaves, Jeff will eventually leave, and that might be better for everybody. But in reality, let's be real. Matt Hardy is virtually immobile and can't really go. What are you re-signing him for? I heard that Jim Ross also re-signed with AEW. Look, these are nice gestures where, Tony Khan, well, at least Jim Ross, he brings something. He might be almost 80, but he brings something. If nothing but nostalgia and some level of prestige to the broadcast. Matt Hardy adds nothing to the company. And he has not added anything to the company since he convinced Jeff to come over. So unless you're going to give him some pity money because of that, we need to just call it a day on the Hardy Boys and kind of let them go. I love the Hardy Boys, but it's 2024, man. You got to start asking questions, especially since Dynamite and AEW is undergoing a drastic change and shift in business. You might want to start rethinking this kind of thing about, signing all of these guys that you don't really need, especially since they're almost 50. Maybe you want to start looking elsewhere. Another thing that really kind of made me laugh is there's some reports coming out now, nothing official, I guess you could say, about people who claim they were hit in the face with glass during Sting's final match. Apparently, AEW, prior to the show, put up a banner warning people that, by buying a floor seat ticket, you run the risk of getting hit by wrestlers and flying objects, etc., and that AEW assumes no liability for anything that happens to you when you buy a floor seat. Let's get this right out of the box. Everybody knows that that's bullshit, right? If you get hit in the face with a foreign object in a show, you can sue. The idea that they can refuse liability on no, you can't refuse liability on these issues. If somebody really got injured at one of these shows, you will probably get sued. Chances are the glass shards were so small that they likely didn't do a great deal of damage. Yes, there's any kind of thing you could have swallowed it. It could have went in your eye. What's the likelihood of that stuff though? It's not very likely that somebody was severely injured, but people do get injured. People get injured by pyro. People get injured by wrestlers coming over the barricade. They get injured in a myriad of ways at shows, and companies have to try to find some way of limiting their liability. I can guarantee you, though, that if somebody was seriously injured by flying glass, AEW will be getting a lawsuit. It is not something where they could just be like, oh, we told you this could happen. Who expects flying glass to come? You would have to be somebody who has been so familiar with the product and so familiar with flying glass that this would basically be your own fault. For instance, those of us who go to GCW shows, they warn people before the match starts that there will be glass, and they brings out the panes of glass, and they start telling people, hey, it's best if everybody move back because the wrestlers are going to be, in the way, yada, yada, yada. They're going to be going into the crowd, etc. Please move out of their way. You get warnings. But understand, the kinds of people who will go to a GCW show or an ECW show are not the litigious type. They already know what they're in for. They already know that these guys go into the crowd. They use weapons. They take weapons from the crowd. They might, do various things in the crowd. They might, rumble through the crowd or whatever. I still say you probably should limit the amount of this kind of stuff that you do, because you can't tell people, well, you should have known. It don't work that way. These are, again, the United States of America is a country where somebody got sued because coffee was too hot. You cannot just say, I warned you about the flying glass. No, that's not going to work. If somebody is seriously injured, especially if it's a child or something like that, you're talking about a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Forget it. Don't even bother. Stop doing it. And to further this ridiculousness, I see this report that comes out about Darby Allin and how there was a stunt coordinator who helped him put this spot together with him jumping off the ladder and everything. And there was a plan B just in case he couldn't continue. And I'm like, wait a minute. What's all of this? For starters, WWE got shit for having writers. And they have a stunt coordinator backstage in AEW? Is this a movie set? Why is there a stunt coordinator? Why are you doing this if you need to have a stunt coordinator? Don't do it. It makes no sense. Second, if you know it was dangerous enough for you to have put together a plan B, then don't do it. Why would you I guess you just don't care about Darby Allin. And you know that Darby Allin doesn't care about Darby Allin. And so you're just going to let him kill himself. It's pretty ridiculous, man. Everything about that report just screams that AEW is trying way, way, way too hard. We're going to get ourselves a professional stunt coordinator so you can jump off a ladder through glass. I guarantee you Mick Foley never had a stunt coordinator. And I don't want to go too far into this, But for the last couple of days, I've really been on a tip, especially since the AEW Defense Force came out to defend AEW Revolution, and it's one of the greatest all time shows or whatever. And I just said to myself, like, man, AEW is a patchwork of I've seen that before, but I've seen it done better. You know, AEW is built on having all of these styles, the Memphis wrestling, the deathmatch wrestling, lucha libre, Japanese strong style, King's Road, all this kind of stuff that's supposedly put together on one card. And you, as a wrestling fan, are supposed to find something on there that you enjoy. The problem is, these are guys who watched the tapes but didn't really learn the psychology of what they were looking at. Their lucha libre isn't as precise, isn't as fast, isn't as fluid as regular lucha libre. If you watch Mexicans do lucha libre, then watch the Young Bucks or watch, Top Flight or Private Party. They're not in the same league. They're not on the same level. All right. You want to talk about the death matches? Look at Mick Foley's death matches and watch Terry Funk's stuff. The drama, the emotion, the violence, the intensity. That stuff is not there for the AEW death match, regardless of who's in it, whether it's Omega, whether it's Moxley, whether it's Darby Allin. It's just not there. When you talk about the Memphis style of stuff that they've been trying to do, the wild brawls and things like that, these guys don't come across as being tough. They don't come across as being uncontrollable. When you talk about the Japanese, strong style, the fighting spirit where you're going to no-sell moves. I mean, think about the fire and the intensity of like Kenta Kobashi. And then watch Will Ospreay do it. It's like, it's not nearly the same thing. Yes, I understand your point of reference. But do you understand your point of reference? Did you watch the product? Did you just say, oh, that looks cool, I'm going to do that? Or did you fully understand why it works? Did you understand the psychology of why it works? Do you understand why people don't complain when Hulk Hogan hawks up, or when the Ultimate Warrior hawks up, or how they can kick out of big moves and nobody cares? In fact, the crowd gets happier. But people are rolling their eyes when it's Will Ospreay. Did you not understand that? What is your understanding of that psychology, of the sort of superhero character? How is it okay for Sting to no-sell moves, but it's not, probably a good idea for a guy like Konosuke Takeshita? Did you not understand that a guy like Eddie Kingston, who's fat and out of shape, is completely different from a guy like Kevin Owens, who's completely different from a Bam Bam Bigelow? I mean, I understand that you think these things are the same because on the surface, they seem the same to you. But to everybody else, they are not the same. To people especially people who like those things, they are not the same. For the AEW fan base, it's enough of a facsimile that it's all right. They'll find something that they like about it because they like the guys involved. But for somebody like me, I'm looking at you and saying, basically, you're a bad cover band. We've all heard people try to take up the song of a more famous artist, and I'm gonna do my rendition of, what was the song Alien Ant Farm did? Smooth Criminal. Some people like that version of Smooth Criminal. I think it sucks because it's not meant to be a rock song. There's a certain level of talent you need to have when you start adapting other people's work. I don't think that the guys in AEW, most of who are trying to do the things that they grew up watching, have the talent to really pull it off. I don't care if you are a fan of Kenta Kobashi and Misawa. That doesn't mean you get to do what they do. Just because you are a fan, so what? You're not good at it. Stop doing it. I don't care if you are a fan of the Luchadors and WCW in 1996 or whatever. You're not good at it. What you do sucks. Stop doing it. I don't care if you're a big fan of Atsushi Onita or Terry Funk or even some of the modern deathmatch guys. You suck at it. Stop doing it. And people don't tell the truth. They just be like, well, I like Eddie Kingston, so it's okay that he sucks completely at the Japanese style. It's okay. The Young Bucks, they kind of trash at Lucha Libre if you compare them to people who actually do Lucha Libre. But we like them, so it's okay. And it's like, no, everything you do is a soulless ripoff of somebody else, and you're not good at it. I don't care if you were a big fan of DX and then NWO. The Bullet Club is not that. It's not good. You should focus on what's good and what you can do good. Versus, I want to be like that guy, and I'm just going to model myself after him. You're not good at it. And AEW is just so much of that. At least when WWE is bad, it's uniquely bad. It's bad in a way that people have never really seen before. Some of the promos are just awful. Some of the matches are kind of trash or whatever the case may be. But at least they're trying something different. You may call LA Knight and Bray Wyatt the worst match in the world or the worst match of the year or whatever. But at least it was an attempt at being unique. It wasn't an attempt to rip off somebody else and did it poorly. They tried something unique and was bad at it. You are trying to do something that other people have already done, and you're poorly doing it. But because this fan base pretty much likes everything and everybody, they're okay with it. That's bullshit, all right? And I'm really starting to hone in on it because I'm seeing it all the time, and AEW Revolution was a really big show when it comes to, hey, we do the same things that you guys liked in the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. Why don't you like us? And my whole thing is, you're not good at it. I don't really need to expand more than that. You're not good at it. All right? When they were trying to do WWE style promos, they actually were good. When the CM Punk and MJF style things where they were doing 15, 20-minute promos, that wasn't, traditional pro wrestling. That was them borrowing from WWE, what they were doing. And guess what? They were good at it. So people didn't really complain. People liked the MJF CM Punk storyline. The fact that it was good eclipsed the fact that it might be, a ripoff of what WWE was doing. Nobody cared. Nobody cares if it's good. Nobody cares if you're a knockoff, if you're good. People only care when you're not good, all right? When you're not good, you being a knockoff makes it even worse. I mean, if these guys are Power Rangers and you're Beetleborgs, then it becomes very noticeable that you're just a knockoff. Speaking of which, AEW has a new intro that is reminiscent of late 90s WWF, which means it's actually good. Rock music probably fits wrestling a lot better than rap music does. I don't know why, but rock music seems to get me more in the, I guess you could say, mood for wrestling. But maybe it's just I'm used to it. But I can't think of a rap song that I was like, okay, that'll get me into the mood for wrestling. But the new intro for Dynamite does it. So then you see the intro, and you see the new set with all the fancy colors. There's so much color. There's color all over the place. And I'm transported to 2022, 2021 when NXT 2.0 occurred. And everybody was talking about how it was Nickelodeon. And, it was color vomit and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just sitting here like, everybody likes this. But when it came to NXT, they didn't like NXT. It was too colorful. It didn't fit. It was no good. And then I see the tunnels. And I say, okay, so we're back with the tunnels thing. We're doing the TNA thing. So think about what I just said. Everything is a piece of something else. Late 90s WWF, TNA. Well, they were doing the color scheme a couple of years back, maybe in like 2019. They were doing paint. But this is extremely colorful. And I'm not against it. Just, I thought it was weird that people would shit all over NXT for having color and then be A-okay with Dynamite having color. Very weird. And anyway, let's just move on. It looked okay. We'll get used to it. So we start the show with a very long Swerve Strickland, Samoa Joe, Tony Schiavone promo. Swerve Strickland basically says 2 years to the day of him signing his contract, he promised he was going to be world champion, but he hasn't done it. Maybe it's karma for all the horrible things that he's done. Then he says that he has a little bit of doubt, and maybe he should be a role player in this company. But something happened on Sunday. Something felt different. The people were finally behind him. People flew from his home state of Washington to North Carolina to see him, and hopefully he was going to win the world championship. He says that he will not let those people down. Then he says, and I think he made a mistake here, where he says he was coming for Samoa Joe, title or not. And then he said he's going to be the AEW world champion. So Samoa Joe comes out, says that Swerve is making promises he can't keep, and that Swerve's house is in his world. And then Swerve and Samoa Joe, they kind of go back and forth. And they look like they were going to, Swerve is challenging Joe to a match, which of course, classic heel stuff, he's not going to do it. Adam Cole then comes out, says that the only thing that matters is that Wardlow is going to be the world champion. And that the only reason Samoa Joe is the champion is because they allowed it. You should amend that statement to say, we actually helped you win. Like, actively helped you win. And it's pretty much that they were in collusion with Samoa Joe the whole time. Anyway, Swerve and Adam Cole have words in which Swerve mentioned that he has Britt Baker's second phone number in his phone. And he mocked him for being a manager. So he said he's like Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget, that's a deep cut for somebody. I think he's younger than me. Swerve got to be like, maybe 35, and he pulling out Inspector Gadget. Nice cut. So Adam Cole then says that he's going to challenge them to a tag team match. Bennett and Taven versus Samoa Joe and Swerve Strickland next week. Swerve wants to do it right now. Adam Cole said, nah, next week. Then Tony Schiavone, in my ear, in the earbud thing, Tony Khan's whispering to me, and he said, the match is right now, get a referee. So a referee comes out, and I promptly went and did something else. And when I came back, Taven and Bennett were beat. So this match was pretty short. Thank God. Why would Samoa Joe agree to this? Don't know. Why did everybody come to the ring in their ring gear? But they got it done, and they got it out of the way. Hot start to the Undisputed Kingdom, where Taven and Bennett lose. Hey, they doing a great job of Ring of Honor, aren't they? Taven and Bennett beat clean in the middle of the ring, made it look like jokes by a mismatched tag team of guys who don't even like each other. Kyle Fletcher, TV champion for Ring of Honor, beat clean as a whistle in the main event. Hey, ROH is chugging along very nicely. Anyway, AEW fans, I'm pretty sure their faces melted. They kind of bloated to the point of explosion, because there was a lot of vignettes on this show that was kind of explaining the storylines for the various matches, kind of like what we asked them to do. So I will give them a huge +5 for having vignettes. They showed the history of Hook and Cage, going all the way back to the FTW championship when Cage was the champion like 3 years ago. That's the right thing to do. I forgot about that, to be quite honest. It's been so long since anybody made anything matter on this show. Then I was snatched back to reality as Chris Jericho cut a promo on Hook. The long and the short of this thing is when Jericho first got to ECW, Taz threw him on his neck, taught him respect, and he didn't really respect Hook until Hook threw him on his neck too. So he thinks that Hook is the real deal. Hook and Jericho dap each other up, and then Hook goes out for his match with Brian Cage. This match was very typical. Brian Cage is a gigantic muscle mountain, but he's actually very awful at pro wrestling. And since he's a gigantic, jacked jabroni, he loses to Hook via submission. Now, they broke out the thumbtacks in this match, which, whenever I see thumbtacks, man, I just, whatever. Whatever. The thumbtack spot was dumb as hell too. I forgot how Brian Cage ended up in the thumbtacks, but he ended up with just like 4 thumbtacks in his lower back, and the rest was like in his butt. So we didn't even get like a great spot. Anyway, afterwards, the Mogul Embassy, are they baby faces or heels? Because Swerve is a baby face now. So are the Mogul Embassy baby faces too? Or has he completely separated from them? He didn't fire them, did he? It seemed like he just very quietly moved on. Nobody's going to answer that question, right? Unless they did answer the question, I wasn't paying attention. I mean, that's a very valid option because I really don't pay a lot of attention. So, Khan, Toa Leona, they jumping all over Hook because, you know, he's small. So you need 2 giant guys to beat him up because one is not, will never do. Jericho runs out there with a bat, chases off those guys because everybody's got bats all of a sudden. The bats everywhere. There's bats all over the place, for God's sakes. Bats in the Belfry. The Young Bucks, they said they have 2 big announcements and they're going to make them in the ring. The entire time they're backstage, they're like, thanks, guys. They're making fun of Tony Khan, which is humorous. You know, I don't have a problem with them mocking Tony Khan. You should always be able to laugh at yourself if you're the boss of a multi-billion-dollar company. But their big announcements in the ring were thus. They were, for starters, they were upset that they lost Sting's final match. And then said they had the old guys out there, the Sons were out there to kick their asses. You know, they cheated. Even though the match was no disqualification, it was essentially 6-on-2. But whatever, you know, so you're supposed to ignore that. They tried to get some heat for saying they ended Sting's career, which technically is not true. Sting ended Sting's career. Because he retired and said he was retiring but long before they got into the picture. Then they said he was going to be in the tag team championship tournament, which they showed a vignette for. You know, the history of tag team tournaments in AEW. That was good. Thank you. Then they started saying their big surprises. The big announcements. And they said the big announcement number 1, they don't want to show any favoritism. Hangman Page puts his hands on an official. So he is suspended from the Elite without pay. And they, of course, were doing very bad acting, which, of course, is typical Young Bucks. They entertain themselves, at least, for God's sakes. And then they said Kenny Omega has not made any dates. So he's fired from the Elite. And of course, Excalibur is on commentary. Oh, Kenny Omega, he's out with an illness. Oh, he's about to die. I saw him flatlining, and then he kept coming back. He kicked out at 2. In any event, Eddie Kingston came out of nowhere, and he got in the face of one of the Young Bucks, who I did not care to remember which one. He called him a bitch, and kind of started a fight. Like, he really just came out there and started a fight. So the Young Bucks beat his ass and was about to hit him with the EVP trigger when Kazuchika Okada's theme song plays, and he comes to the ring to stand side by side with Eddie Kingston. Lo and behold, you think that Kingston and Okada are about to take out the Young Bucks, but no! Okada swerves everybody by attacking Eddie Kingston, by grabbing Eddie Kingston and hitting him with the Rainmaker. At this point, the Young Bucks announced the newest member of the Elite is Kazuchika Okada. So they fired Kenny Omega and brought in his greatest rival to take his spot in the Elite. This is at least they have a plan. Let's start positive, because everybody knows the negative. The negative is Okada has to rub elbows with the Young Bucks, which he doesn't mind because they're friends. And that's really what this is all about, right? They're all friends. But at least they have a plan. They set up a couple of things here in the future. They kicked out Omega. They're setting up a future Omega-Okada match, clearly. They're setting up a future Kingston-Okada match, and maybe Okada winning that Continental Crown belt, which, who cares? Like, really, who cares? It was supposed to be a surprise that Okada was there, even though it was spoiled hours before. Much to the chagrin of AEW, no doubt. But his heel turn was at least a surprise. So they had some stuff going for it. I don't like the idea of Okada hanging out with the Young Bucks. It sucks. At the same time, though, I don't know if I had a better idea. These are his friends. You know, these are the guys he likes working with. He likes hanging out with these guys. So this works out. You know, and he's going to get to wrestle Kenny Omega, and Omega's going to get to wrestle him, and this is something that fan base likes. Unfortunately, his finisher is a clothesline. I'll never get over how this guy's supposed to be one of the biggest stars of all time, and he throws a not good clothesline. But it was even worse because Eddie Kingston had to take it. So it's a ripcord clothesline. So what that means is you have to spin him around almost like a yo-yo. You know how like a yo-yo like unfurls? That's kind of how you have to do with the clothesline. So Eddie Kingston he tries to attack the Young Bucks, and Okada has to grab him. So he grabs him, then he grabs his arm and turns him around. But Eddie Kingston is a big bruiser kind of guy. Why was he being so cooperative with this clothesline? You know, like, it'd have been nice if he just attacked him from behind first and then did it. You know, like something simple. Like, you know, maybe he looks like he's going to attack the Young Bucks and then he just clubs Eddie Kingston from behind, knocking him down, and then did it. That way, you know, Kingston doesn't look like he's cooperating with this situation. But that's just a minor details. So Okada's here. Everybody's happy, I guess. I'm fine with it. I don't hate it. I don't love it either. Orange Cassidy's backstage. Him and Trent will be the tag team of the best friends in the tournament. Who cares? Christian Cage, he came out to do commentary because Luchasaurus is going to wrestle Matt Menard. I went to the bathroom, came back, this match was over. Praise God! So I didn't watch it. Luchasaurus wins. After the match, Daniel Garcia comes out there, and, you know, Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus beat up Daniel Garcia. Then Daniel Garcia is left laying. You know, they just beat his ass, because fuck him, right? So then Edge throws Luchasaurus off the stage, chokes out Nick Wayne, and probably the quickest choke out I've ever seen in my life. I don't think I've ever seen people get choked out of MMA faster than that. Then we get a great chase scene where Edge is chasing Christian through the building, through backstage, and Christian snatches a guy out of the driver's seat of a car. He steals the car and drives off. Excellent stuff here. Edge then stares into the camera and says this thing has to end, and it's going to end where it began in Toronto. March the 20th, Edge Cage 3 I Quit match for the TNT title. All right. Okay, good. This is good. Now, I will give Tony Khan some credit. He has set up the main event in 2 weeks to be very special. So, I like that. Thank you. And the week before that is going to be, everybody knows, the debut of Mercedes Sasha Banks Monet. So at least they have these 3 weeks where something major is going to happen. Where this week it was Okada, next week is Sasha Banks, and then Sasha Banks makes Mercedes Monet, and then after that is Edge and Christian finishing their feud. So that's fine. Rick Grimes is backstage. He's still got the sunken eyes. He's still pale. I don't understand what's going on with his vitamins intake. I know he had a broken neck, but Kyle O'Reilly looks gaunt. He looks sick. He looks sleepy. He says that he just wants to be by himself. He broke his neck and he didn't think he was ever going to come back, but now he's got a second chance and he's just grateful. Whatever. Do what you do. Next, Chris Statlander is defeated by Riho because she refuses to cheat. I'm sick of this. It's about time for Chris Statlander to get the fuck out of AEW. It's time to put her in the same concept with Wardlow and Hobbs and so many others, where she should be doing so much cool shit in WWE with her stature. Now, she's not much in terms of personality, but I would like to see Chris Statlander mix it up with Rhea Ripley, or mix it up with Becky Lynch or Bianca Belair, pick girls of her stature. That would be great. Instead, she's losing to minis. Riho is literally a 4'6", 38 pounds. She's built like a fifth grader. and she beat Chris. That's the story, though, is Chris Statlander is too good for her own good, and she refuses to let people cheat. I'm going to skip over all this Rampage stuff, and nobody cares about the Julia Hart shit, so we're going to skip over that too. But we will pause for the cause to talk about Julia Hart's promo here. Julia Hart cannot talk, all right? Now, clearly she can speak. She knows words. She can get them from her brain, but out of her mouth. The problem is there is zero emotion, zero personality to be had anywhere in that thing. And I cannot be sure that it's character. She's talking like a drone, on the other side of a voice box in a drive-thru at McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? Like, you talk to somebody and they've been there for 4 hours already. They're tired. They're sleepy. You want a number 4? Do you like fries with that? Like, yes, but light salt. Heavy salt, light salt. You like salt, more salt? Oh, fuck. It's like she got no personality whatsoever. I don't understand how this is possible. I'm pretty sure that she laughs and jokes with her friends. She might have a bubbly personality. I know she can't show that because of the character, but you have to add something to this character. You just being San's personality is not going to work out. And I don't like what they're doing over here with Mark Briscoe and Malachi Black. I'm not a fan. I watched Collision. I told you that. Watching Mark Briscoe fight off all 3 members of the House of Black by himself, I laughed my ass off. Laughed my ass off. Laughed my ass off. So now we're going to do that, but we're doubling down. This time it's going to be Mark Briscoe, Jay Lethal, and Jeff Jarrett. Well, man, what a day that's going to be. Toni Storm is backstage. She says that it's time. It's award season. So she's going to give away the Tony Award. But it's going to be Tony with an I, so they won't get sued. Clearly, this is just going to be a segment. So Toni Storm could be in the ring when Mercedes Sasha Banks Monet comes out. That's really all it's going to boil down to. She's going to be in the ring doing nonsense. And then Sasha Banks Monet going to come out there, okay? So now that you know, they're going to start her right at the top. Because why wouldn't you? It's a smart thing to do. Now, Darby Allin. Oh boy, what a terrible promo this guy was. He comes out there to talk about what's next for him. So he talks about being homeless 5 years ago, going from being homeless to main eventing a pay-per-view. There's no guarantee he's coming back from climbing Mount Everest. So he's going to go out fighting for his life, and said that he's not going to pick a new partner because you can't replace the icon Sting. He was weepy and his voice was breaking. And I'm like, this sucks. It's already hard to take this guy seriously. And I have a newfound disrespect for this little turd. So he has to give me something more than this. This sucks. And I don't care about him going to climb Mount Everest. So I'm actually sick of hearing about it. Go climb the motherfucker right now. Why do you have to wait until the 27th? Do it now. Is it going to close? Is it closed? Or you can't climb it now because it's closed? Is it not there yet? Like, what are you waiting for? Like, is that like when your PTO kicks in? What the fuck? Anyway, he's got a match with Jay White, and they're trying to bill it like it might be the last match he ever has, because he might die climbing Mount Everest. So Jay White comes out, and then Jay White, who's been a babyface for like 3 weeks, all of a sudden goes back to being a heel because nothing matters. He says that he don't know when the next time they'll have a chance to talk face to face because he wants to say some things to him right now. He saw how, Darby Allin was willing to sacrifice any and everything to make sure Sting won his last match. But it was stupid. He left Sting 2-on-1 by himself, but he don't really care about Sting. He doesn't really care about Darby either, but they don't have to have this match. What is Darby Allin without Sting? Says that he's a little bitty puppy with nobody to hold his leash, nobody to clean up after him. Why don't you come join us? We even got a nickname for you. We're going to call you Darby Scissorhands. And people started to groan when he said that. When he said Darby Scissorhands, people were like, ooh. It wasn't quite Diarrhea Dwayne bad, but it was in the same ballpark. Diarrhea Dwayne is a touchdown of really cringe promos, right? But, but Darby Scissorhands, it's like getting to the 20-yard line. It's a field goal range, you know what I'm saying? It ain't quite 3 points, but it's field goal range for sure. It's bad. Anyway, Darby shuts him down and says that he has done nothing in AEW except play with cardboard cutouts, and that Darby doesn't believe the hype, and that if Jay White is any good, he'll come fight him next week alone. And then Darby teased Jay White's chinny chin with that bat. And I was like, I don't like the symbolism here. Not good. But they are setting it up for Darby to get his shit kicked in by the Bang Bang Scissor Gang. Which is weird because isn't the Acclaim baby faces too? But they weren't out here for this. Very weird. Very weird decision. Anyway, I don't care about this. Fuck Darby Allin. Jay White, it might be too late. It ain't quite too late, but it's too late. Considering they brought in Okada near the top. They brought in Ospreay, a hop, skip, and a jump from the top. They brought in Jay White, and he's just been coasting. Jay White has had the same career trajectory as Adam Cole, where everybody is pretending like he's a big deal and he does stuff that is very important and he's had big matches and all this kind of stuff. But in reality, his stock has not moved that much. It's like ticks up a couple of notches, ticks down a couple of notches, ticks up a couple of notches, ticks down a couple of notches. It's very upper mid card. Now, main event. Will Ospreay defeats Kyle Fletcher. I don't care about this. This match was so fucking long. And Will Ospreay did a dab in this match. He dabbed, bro. Very TJP. He's still in TJP swag now. Anyway, the important bit is what happened after the match. After Kyle Fletcher, who is a bum, by the way. Why is he in the main event? Because Tony Khan didn't really think too much about it. Didn't really care. Kyle Fletcher, bum. Danielson comes out. Now things are supposed to get interesting. But it got really, really interesting for me because I listened to the crowd reaction. And the lack of crowd reaction. So Will Ospreay is in the ring and Danielson is coming down the ramp. There was a time, good 3 or 4 years ago, where if you'd had Will Ospreay in the middle of the ring and Bryan Danielson coming down the ramp, his music playing, people would have been standing up. They'd have been like, ooh, ooh. Sort of like what he did with, Kenny Omega. But after at least 2 to 3 years of really terrible booking, of Danielson losing every major match that he's been in, with the exception of old Japanese guys and Mexicans. He's beaten those guys pretty handily. But if you're an American, especially a fat one, or one of the guys that the crowd supposedly likes a lot, Danielson is just going to lay down and take the L and not really care that much. And now you see the damage that they've done to him. Because even the people in the building were kind of like, it'd be a good match, but the electricity wasn't there. Those people should have been standing up. Will Ospreay has not been on your roster full time a month yet. And people are already kind of like, okay, good. Danielson's been there for 2 or 3 years. This is a match, I don't think this match has ever occurred. And it's a match that you would think the AEW fan base would be salivating for. And yet, that excitement exists almost completely online. Nobody gives a shit in the building. And maybe it was the building, but I don't think so. I think they've done a lot of damage to Bryan Danielson's drawing power, his name, they will never admit it. They'll never say, yeah, we fucked this up. But look at the results. Danielson can't get Collision off its knees. I mean, Collision is like filth right now. It's terrible. He can't get it off the ground because nobody believes in him anymore. Nobody wants to see him wrestle Shane Taylor or wrestle random Mexicans or random Japanese guys. That stuff does not appeal to casual fans. The people who were behind him during the Yes movement, who was chanting yes with him. The reason why you care about him today ain't because of fuck anything he did in Ring of Honor. It's because of what he did in WWE. They've killed that. That aura. It's gone. Or at least it's greatly diminished. Now, everybody likes Danielson because everybody likes him. He's a great guy, great talent. Put him in the same class with Kurt Angle and Bret the Hitman Hart and Eddie Guerrero as a five-tool player who can do humorous things, technical wrestling, be silly, be serious, and the whole 9 yards. But fuck, he's not a wizard. All right, even Bret buckled under poor booking. When you even Kurt Angle, when you book people poorly, they lose something. When you book them to lose to the Eddie Kingstons of your roster and the various other jabronis like Hangman Page, when people don't believe that he's ever going to get there, then people tend to tune out. You're trying to engage the people who care more about the athletics of the match. And that's fine. Those people will always be there. But everybody else who, again, cares about storylines, it's not going to work. And then once we start with this Danielson special, which is, I want to know who's the best wrestler. I am the best wrestler. Everybody's going to be like, the best wrestler technically is the world champion. You're not the world champion. So, fuck this. Who cares? It's all about Will Ospreay anyway. Give Will Ospreay the platform to do more flips. It's unfortunate. I want to like Danielson, but they're not making it easy. I mean, no storyline matches with guys like Shane Taylor on a Saturday night. Come on. Cold matches with Shane Taylor on a Saturday night. You know, not building up this thing with Will Ospreay. I mean, it is what it is. Guys just wandering aimlessly from match to match. They're trying to fix that problem, I could tell. I'm looking at them. But some of it is just not working. Like Swerve is good. He's really coming along nicely as a babyface. He touched all the right notes in his promo in terms of being a babyface. It's just unfortunate that he's been tangled up with Samoa Joe for several weeks. And it doesn't seem like it's really benefiting him anymore. And, then they decided they were going to do Wardlow versus Samoa Joe at Big Business, which is a huge match, again, for TV. But you're just wandering aimlessly between match and match. Because what do? Do you put the belt on Wardlow and then you kill the heat that you had between Samoa Joe and Swerve? Or do you decapitate Wardlow once and for all by having him lose? Because I can tell you for a fact that if Wardlow loses, it's over. All right? It's over and done with. And I don't think you'll ever get anybody behind him ever again. You barely got anybody behind him now. And it's actually more sensible for him to lose. You always got the MJF card you could play. He's been gone for a while. You could have MJF pop up and cost Wardlow the match. But I still think that if Wardlow doesn't win, you cut the nuts off this bull once and for all, and there's nothing more you could do. But if you put the belt on him, then you're going to have a lot of the Swerve loyalists say, man, of the people pursuing the title, Swerve was the most over, and then you decided to give it to Wardlow. You might even fall into that racial thing where, old Michael Wardlow was like, oh, it's white privilege. But I'm joking, partially, when it comes to that. But they're in a tough spot because Wardlow is a guy who probably should have been world champion a year or so ago. and he was red hot, and they dropped the ball. Now they're in the same position with Swerve Strickland, where he's red hot. He's the most over babyface on the show, and it doesn't look like you're going to strike while the iron's hot. That's a mistake. If you're going to do it, it's a mistake. Let's put it that way. If you're not going to do it, then it doesn't matter, right? If you're never going to put the belt on them, then it doesn't matter. But if you're ever going to put the belt on them, you have to do it while the iron's hot, man. But they've got a tough situation to be in. I'm pretty sure they think they got a smart way out of this. I don't see a smart way out of it. I just see that either you're about to irreparably damage Wardlow, or you're about to create a little bit of chaos in terms of it's Wardlow's turn, and it wasn't Swerve's turn yet, quote unquote. But it ought to be interesting either way. Next week is going to be a big show. This week, basura, as usual. But let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.